Senator Rosen.
Well, thank you, Chair Cantwell, and of course, Ranking Member Wicker. Good to see you, Ms. Sohn. Thank you for agreeing to come back to the committee to answer these additional questions. It's so important, and I really want to thank you again for coming and meeting with me in my office to discuss the real issues that we have back home in Nevada, issues raised by my constituents, and really agreeing to come to Nevada and meet with everyone if confirmed. And I also appreciate you reaffirming your commitment to broadcast diversity, to rural broadband development, building on what Senator Moran and others have said. But these are also two critical priorities for Nevada. Our state is more than a quarter Latino. We have one of the fastest growing AAPI populations in the country. And so we place a premium on greater representation in broadcast spaces. And so therefore, I was glad to hear from you about your interest in removing barriers for minority-owned and small broadcast stations, something I asked you at the first confirmation hearing. So you're here again. I'm going to ask you for the record. You did commit to this in my office. Will you again please commit that if confirmed, you will come to Nevada as soon as possible with me to meet key stakeholders on the ground, including the Nevada broadcasters, to hear their concerns and engage in that important dialogue on the issues within the FCC's jurisdiction important to Nevada?
So I just started watching the TV show Hacks, which takes place in Las Vegas, and I was actually thinking about coming to Nevada. I haven't been to Vegas in a while, so I'd love to come and see more than just Las Vegas.
That's fantastic.
I absolutely will.
That TV show is great, but the best thing about being in all of Nevada is we have, I know I'm sitting here by Montana, John Tester, but we have great blue skies and beautiful mountains, and they are on display every single day. So you'll enjoy the scenery as well. But we want to talk a little bit about the bipartisan infrastructure law. And so if confirmed, of course, you'll have a significant role in helping to close the digital divide, something, again, everybody is concerned about. And as one of the members who worked on developing the bipartisan infrastructure law, and I helped to draft many of the broadband provisions, I do know this is a once-in-a-generation investment in our nation's infrastructure, and we have to have the staff and the resources to make this investment a reality, and that includes a fully functioning FCC. And the new law sets forth several significant markers that need to be hit soon, including ones related to FCC's broadband mapping program. MAP's critical to us doing our job, and that's directly tied to the new law's broadband deployment program. Unless we map it, how do we know where we need it exactly? So, Ms. Sohn, with this in mind, can you talk about how you envision the FCC's role in implementing the bipartisan infrastructure law and including lowering those barriers to broadband access and adoption?
Well, Senator Rosen, you hit the nail on the head. The first thing that needs to happen is those maps have got to get done because, as Secretary of Commerce Raimondo testified last week, they can't give out the money until those maps are finished. So I will, if I'm confirmed, I will be a partner to the chair to get those maps done and get them done accurately. Obviously, the FCC also has oversight and has to implement the Affordable Connectivity Program, which I discussed before, which provides a $30 subsidy to folks that cannot afford broadband. And that's something that's going to be very important as well. But even on top of that, the FCC is tasked with doing a report on the future of universal service and how the the bipartisan infrastructure law actually reduces or changes in some way its obligations under universal service. Because there's been a lot of talk about how broken the universal service program is, particularly the contribution mechanism. And getting that report done right will have recommendations not only for the FCC, but also for Congress on how to make sure that there is ongoing funding for broadband and ongoing funding for Lifeline in the future. So we've got a lot of work to do.
Well, good. I'm glad my middle mile broadband deployment bill is part of that act. But I want to talk about, I brought up my mountains, the Nevada mountains and skyline for a reason, because our terrain is often difficult. And we have rural, we have tribal areas, and really frontier. We're one of the most mountainous states in the lower 48, very, very rough country to go through. So it's not always, laying fiber isn't always possible. Terrain just gets in the way. So based on our discussions about some of our unique broadband challenges, can you tell us how you might have confirmed help ensure that our rural communities, our tribal communities, separated, again, by challenging terrain, can have equal access to that high-quality, affordable broadband?
Yes, I mean, this is something, again, that the infrastructure law addresses, that, it is preferred to have, the most future-proof, the most resilient, the most, high-powered broadband out there. However, there are areas, because of geography, that will need to be served by other technologies, by fixed wireless, by satellite. So, NTIA, the FCC needs to be flexible when it comes to those places. Specifically with regard to tribal, I've been a huge advocate for the tribes having more sovereignty over the spectrum over their land and over their wireline networks as well. And in fact, I just had a fascinating conversation with the president and vice president of the Navajo Nation about how they can increase their sovereignty over their broadband. And they've seen, I visited Gila River, it's Arizona, it's too bad Senator Sinema isn't here, and I saw the power of them owning their own broadband and what it does to a community. It completely transforms it.
Yeah, it can change healthcare, education, so many things, access. So thank you. I see I'm over my time.